Hey everyone, welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today I have a wonderful guest for you, and I think you're really going to enjoy her. Her name is Jen Rulon. She has been a triathlon fitness coach for over 22 years and owns jenrulon.com. She received her master's degree in kinesiology with an emphasis in exercise science. She's an author and a speaker included in Triathlete Magazine, Runner's World, on the TEDx stage, and the University of Wisconsin Whitewater Commencement Speaker, Men's Journal Online, and the New York Times. She is also the author of Self-Motivation Strategies for Women, which you can find on Amazon. And the coolest thing about her is she's a 15-time Ironman triathlete who qualified and participated in the World Championship in Kona, Hawaii on October 14th, 2017. That is so interesting. Welcome to the
Thank you.
podcast, Jen. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Julie. I appreciate it. I have enjoyed our conversation from the very beginning, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
looking
think we're
forward
gonna
to
I
this.
think we're gonna have fun. And I think talking to someone like you who's done all these physical things and coaches people on their physicality, but also their mental health will be
Mhm.
super helpful for anybody that's listening to this podcast. So the first question I always ask people is to tell me their story, because I like to
Ooh.
kind of hear how people got to where they are today. And you can tell me as
Mm,
much or as little as you want.
right. So I was born in Detroit, Michigan. No, I'm joking. Uh, I think I like to always start off with when I was 17 years old. I was watching the ABC Wide World of Sports, and as we've talked about our age,
Yes,
you may
yes.
remember the
I
tagline,
definitely love
right?
that show. Yep.
Right, the thrill of victory and the agony
Agony of
of
defeat.
defeat, and you see the
Yes.
skier going,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So I was watching that at 17 years old, and I was watching the Ironman World Championship in Hawaii, and that was in 1989. And I see, if you don't know what an Ironman is, it's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and a 26.2 marathon run.
Crazy.
And it's crazy. And so
Yeah.
I was watching Dave Scott and Mark Allen race that day, and these guys were running neck and neck the whole race from the swim to the bike to the run. And I believe they were running under 6 minute miles for that run. And these guys were
After
just
swimming and biking.
exactly, I just was like, so like,
How can they do
wow,
that? Yeah.
what? And that day, Mark Allen won, where Dave was winning all these races prior, but Mark, you just saw that click in Mark's mind. And I've met Mark many times since then. We've had great conversations. He's
Yeah.
such a cool guy. And he's like, Jen, he's like, that shift in my mind, he's like, you can't teach it. You have to feel it. You have to
He
learn it, you
wanted
know?
it bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he crossed, and then an hour later, Paula Newby Frazier crosses, the first female. And I sat there and I thought, okay, hmm, I want to do that race by the time I'm 30. I want to do the Ironman World Championship,
Yeah.
or I want to do an Ironman. And so I went to my mom and my grandpa like around Christmas time. I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw this Ironman World Championship in Hawaii, and I want to participate and compete."
Do that.
And my mom was like, "Okay." And my grandpa's like, "Well, when you go, I'll go with you. I've been to Hawaii. Where my grandpa was that World War II vet, Purple Heart, like just that.
Awesome, awesome guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
that grandpa.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that, I thought, okay, I got to go do it. And so for many years, and the ironic thing about this, and I talked about this at my commencement speech, I hated running. I was not good at running, but I got really good at it. And
Yeah.
so I did my first Ironman at Ironman, Wisconsin, and I did it in 12 hours and 58 minutes. So I did it under 13 hours. And I guess I didn't know, but that was pretty good for a first timer. And I was like,
Sounds good
all
to
right,
me.
sounds good to me, right? And then I realized, oh, it's going to take time for me to get to Hawaii. So I did do my first Ironman by the time I was 30, but I didn't do the Ironman World Championship until 28 years later. So I did
Oh, that
qualify.
that was a
Yeah,
lot of training, huh?
it was a
28
lot
years.
of training.
Yeah.
So and I tell this story a lot. I did 4 Ironmans. I took an 8-year sabbatical. And that sabbatical, my ex and I, we were trying to have children. My job was my focus at that point. So for me to go out and swim, bike, and run on my days off just wasn't really good for my mental strength, my body. I found CrossFit, drank the Kool-Aid, that type of thing. Also during that time, I left my full-time job and went back to school, got my master's degree, that type of thing. And so I learned a lot in the lab as a triathlete, but then I learned a lot coaching CrossFit, doing all of that stuff. So it was a really beautiful blend on becoming that triathlete and learning what I was doing, not only in the lab, but also outside swimming,
Mm,
biking, and running.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a mental, you had to develop that mental
Yes,
strength and
I
that
did.
really helped.
That CrossFit played such a huge role for me. It was insane.
Yeah.
Like the learning about I've always loved strength training. Like even I would go to, at my college, I would work out with the boyfriends, that type of thing. But I didn't really realize what a difference it was from those 4 Ironmans to those 11 Ironmans later by learning about strength training. Yeah.
Yeah. So I found it interesting when you said when you told your parents and your grandpa at 17 that you wanted to do this, that they didn't poo-poo it. Like I'm super
No,
impressed by that because a lot of
right.
people say things like that to their parents and their parents kind of, you know, almost want to squash their dreams, trying to keep them safe. And I'm super
Yes.
surprised that they were both really supportive, like right from the first time you said that.
They were. And
Yeah.
my mom has always been that way. There's been times where I'm like, "Hey mom, I'm going to go audition for The Lion King." And she's like, "But you don't dance." And I'm like, "But it's an open audition. Like I don't care. I'm going." And I
Nice.
went. I
Yeah.
went.
Good for you.
Like yeah, I'm like I auditioned for a Broadway play. My bucket list is checked, you
Check.
know?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So like there's those things, but and even when growing up, and we talked about this, I worked at SeaWorld I was in the marine mammal field for many years. And she didn't second guess that at all. She kept pushing me and encouraging me, even though she knew I would have to leave Whitewater, Wisconsin.
Right. Yeah.
You
Leave
know,
home. Yeah. But
yeah,
I just find that really interesting because so many people don't have that kind of support from their parents.
true.
My parents were really supportive and, kind of helped me get to where I wanted to go. But I just see a lot of other people that just don't have that. So I think
Yeah.
it's so important. Do you, this is going to pull us off subject a little bit, but with that in mind, do you have any advice for people that kind of have that mentality that's left over from their parents? Kind of, I call it like the
Mm,
dream squasher or the you
yeah.
can't do that because somebody that did an Ironman, many Ironmans, you would have a hard time doing that if somebody was in the background trying to squash it.
Yeah. You know, I think I've always been that child that didn't really care about what
What other
others,
people
well,
thought,
yeah, now granted there's those moments that I did, right? I think
right?
I've always been outside the norm because I didn't want to be a teacher or a doctor. I didn't even want to be a parent. Like I didn't want to have kids personally. So
Yeah,
I think I was always that different type of kid that was like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to go work at SeaWorld. I'm going to move to Texas. I'm going to move to Costa Rica. I'm going to do it. And I've always been that way.
yeah,
So yeah, so going back to the question about if you have that mindset, you have to start as I've aged, you have to start recognizing this is your life. It's not your parents, it's not your kids. This is the life that you are living. You have one life to live. So if you make a choice or make a change for yourself to become a better version of yourself, that's all that matters.
yeah. And that's a really good way to think about it because as time passes, you do. You start thinking, oh, I'm running out of time to do all these things I want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I'm one of those people too that has like these bucket lists that go on for
For
days.
sure. For sure.
And
Same.
my mom will laugh at me. She go, "You want to do everything?" And I'm like, "Well, I kind of do."
Right? Why not? I mean, we, like you said, we have one life to live, and if we're not living it, then we're dying.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
What's I think it's Shawshank Redemption. They said get busy living or get busy dying.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's the truth. Yeah, it's kind of a depressing thought, but it's so
It
true,
is.
right?
It
Like
is, yeah.
you only have what you have. You only have today. So tell me how well, I want to hear about all of this, but tell me how you decided you coached people on the athletic part of it, but now you
Yeah.
also are a mindset coach. How did that
Hmm.
kind of come about?
Yeah, so when I left when I left SeaWorld, when I went back to get my master's in kinesiology, I was applying for jobs left and right. I was an adjunct professor at a university at the University of Texas, no, Texas A&M San Antonio. Like I was just doing all these like little jobs, and I'm like, what am I doing? And at one point, I was like, why don't you just work for yourself?
Hmm.
So then I became the triathlon running, like the endurance coach, and I did that for many years. I was online before online was cool. So 2000, yeah, I
So you
was
started
online.
early.
I started way early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
And
actually coached the athletes online, not
I
in
did.
person?
I
Okay.
did.
That's
I did.
interesting.
Yeah, I've coached athletes all around the world from Mexico, Canada, United States, Costa Rica, Sweden, Australia.
Yeah.
It's super easy. And a lot of my triathletes and runners are very motivated. They're ready. They're like, hey, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm this, I'm a busy mom. I need somebody that one keeps me accountable, two that gives me a game plan, and three that has the knowledge. And
Yes.
that's what I do. That's what I do. So then I took those three elements and then decided to transfer into that fitness nutrition mindset coach for women because as I was leaving the triathlon space, a lot of my girlfriends were leaving the triathlon space. We were going through the change. We were making all these changes in our life. Like we didn't have swim, bike, run, repeat anymore. We
Right.
had we had to figure out, well, what can we do for ourselves as we are aging? And so I started thinking, well, what do I do for myself? I have fitness, I have strength training, I focus on my nutrition and my macro counting, and then my mindset. And the mindset came from being that 15-time Ironman triathlete.
Yeah. And do you find that in order to be a successful athlete in any sport,
Mhm.
that much of it comes from your mindset, not necessarily? I mean, you have to do the work, obviously,
For
physically,
sure.
but in order to tolerate that kind of body abuse that you go through
Hmm.
as a triathlete,
Hmm.
is it mostly about your frame of mind?
It, I think it is. I think there's been a lot of clients that I've worked with that will say, I can't, and I can't. And I'm like, we have to shift that because when you get to that race, when you toe that line, whether it's a triathlon or run or going into the gym, that if you sit there and you're like, you can't, then your body's telling you, you can't finish that swim, that 2.4 swim. You can't get off the bike in time. You can't run. So yeah, I think a lot. And that's such a simple thing, but once you start training consistently, then you start gaining that confidence.
Right, right. So there's some connection between the physical and the mental.
There is,
Because
yeah,
I'm thinking of veterinarians and people that I
for
coach that
sure.
are struggling with their job. And,
Mhm.
our job is difficult, probably not as difficult as a triathlon,
Nah,
but
I don't know though. Like
but
you said,
well, some
emotional.
days, right? Some
Yeah, some
days
days, yeah,
there's a lot of motion involved, but it's a similar thing, right? That you're training your brain to handle the difficult, like what's
yeah.
the most difficult part of a triathlon? Like does it really suck?
Oof.
Always?
Mile 20. No, 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 no. Somebody else asked me the same question, and it's about mile 20 on the run for me.
Okay. So you only have like 6 miles left.
6 miles left, and you're like, and that's a 10K, whatever. And
Right.
you're sitting there going, are you kidding me? I'm never doing this again. There's a great photo of me in Hawaii just running, and I am so focused, and it's probably at mile 22, knowing that I'm almost home, but knowing I still have 4 miles to go. And that just is one of the hardest. And so I think it's mile 20. Your body hurts, like everything, even like your eyelashes hurt. I mean, not really, but like just everything hurts, like mentally, physically, you're ready to be done.
And
And
your
and you
brain's telling you to quit.
oh,
Your brain's
100%.
saying, oh, you could just stop right now.
Yeah.
You're almost
You've
there,
done
but you
most of
should
it.
quit.
Yeah.
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 And then you're sitting there fighting with your brain.
Oh, it's well, and I give this analogy all the time, and it's like oh, Animal House, right? You got the angel and the devil sitting on your
Yeah.
shoulder talking
Talking
to
to you.
you.
Yeah.
You got that little devil going, "Oh, you're slow. You're not going to finish. What are you doing?" And then the angel's over here. You're like, "Hey, your grandpa's watching you, blah blah blah," like
Yeah. You
so
better
it's
go.
that game. You better go. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that that's applicable to almost anything in
for
life that's
sure.
difficult, is can you overcome the negative part of your brain that wants to
Hmm.
quit, because we
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
always think it would be easier to quit.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think something that, sort of talking about that, the people talking and saying like the naysayers and stuff like that.
Yes.
I think sometimes what I've realized going through my own changes that there were so many naysayers telling me what I should and shouldn't do that finally I just had to shut them out and be like, no, this is my life. This is what I need to do. So when I'm out on that race course, or when I was out on that race course, I would have to say to the little devil, I'm like, get off my shoulder. I don't need you here.
Yeah. Shut
And
up. Yeah.
shut up. And I literally would say, you're gone. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done
Right.
with you. And then I'd snap out of it. And so I would say probably 20 to 23 are probably one of the hardest parts that I've dealt with. Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you kind of forget about the pain after the first one, and that's why you do a second one, kind of like labor,
No, I
I had
think,
two
yeah, you're
kids and I'm like, how can you have another kid after pushing out the first
right.
one? But you kind of forget about the pain. Is
I
it that
think
similar in
I
triathlete?
100%. I haven't had kids, but yeah, you're right. I think you do forget about that pain. And there's an ongoing like meme. It's like that race was awful. When do we sign up for the next one? And
How do I just torture myself again?
exactly. Let's torture
Yeah.
ourselves again. So yeah, it's definitely you're right. I think you're spot on. You sort of forget about because what you feel is crossing that finish line with a
Yeah. Tell me what
smile.
that feels like.
Oh,
I mean, I kind
I
of
re
know because I've
yeah,
done a few things that were really tough that I was surprised that I accomplished. But what does it feel like? So, I mean, that's the whole reason for doing it, right?
right, right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's that sense of accomplishment. And in my TEDx talk, I talked about how I wanted my dad's validation because my
Mm.
brother was the football, basketball, baseball player, homecoming king,
Yeah.
and he had that intangible bond with my dad
Okay.
where my dad didn't understand my sports. I softball, cheerleaded, that
Right.
type of
It's not the
thing, right?
same.
It's
Macho
not the
men, they
same.
like the boys'
Yes,
sports better, right?
right. So I thought if I did something extreme, maybe dad will notice
And
me
he'll think it's cool, right?
and they'll think it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the great thing is that when I crossed the finish line to that first Ironman in Wisconsin, I didn't need his validation anymore because I validated myself.
Yeah. Yeah. You were just
But
proud of yourself that you were
I
able to
was
do it.
100%. And then moving forward, then I wanted to get to Hawaii because grandpa was like, I'm going to sponsor you. I literally when I went back to Texas to clean out my storage unit, I found a letter from my grandpa saying, when you go to Hawaii, I'm going to sponsor you. Just let me know. And unfortunately, grandpa passed away in 2001, so he never saw me do any races, but I knew he was around me.
He
For
saw you.
for he saw me. Yeah, butterflies are a big part of my lives, and during some of the hardest, toughest times of my life, but some of the most beautiful times in my life, I've seen butterflies, and that's always Grandpa
That
to
was
me.
him.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and what a blessing to have somebody like that, even that was no longer with you, but that
right,
was encouraging you.
yeah,
Because not everybody
agreed.
has that, not
No,
everybody
no,
has
you're
a
right. I
family that
know.
supports them and, you know, but
Yeah,
I think knowing that you could still do it, you didn't need that. It was
no,
nice to have, but you
it
still
was.
validated yourself.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
So tell me when it was a real struggle, when you were really thinking about quitting at some point, or when you said you quit for a while and then went back
Hmm.
to it.
Hmm.
How did you make that transition? Like if somebody's stuck somewhere and they feel like they're not moving forward,
Mm,
how do you make that move from I have this goal or
right.
I think this would be a cool goal, but I'm afraid to try it,
Yeah.
being stuck in your own self-doubt.
I think the heart tells you a lot versus the brain.
Mm,
The heart knows what you want to do, but the brain and the external noise will stop you.
yeah,
And
squash.
that external, yeah, will squash you. That external noise can be your own noise up in that head. Other people telling you you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. Why would you do
Right.
this? I mean,
Yeah.
people thought I was crazy moving down to Costa Rica. They thought I was running away from a broken marriage, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Right. You
but
just wanted to go there.
I knew what was in my heart.
Right.
And I had to listen to what my heart said. Now, if could I get heartbroken if I come down to Costa Rica and it didn't work out, whatever, 100%. But at least I learned that lesson,
Right.
and it
Yeah.
wasn't somebody trying to protect me and trying to keep me in my shell.
Right.
It's like, no. So going back to your question, is that like, listen to what the heart says. The heart is always telling the truth. We have to get out of our brain to stop thinking that we can't do it or, oh, maybe, what if, blah, blah, blah. Like, what if I do move to Costa Rica and it becomes the most beautiful thing ever? What if I do move to Costa Rica and it's awful and I hate it and I move back to the States? Oh, well, so
Right.
what?
Yeah. At least you
You move
tried.
back.
Right.
At least I tried. Yeah.
I think we're so afraid of failure that we don't even try.
Yes.
And on some level, the not trying is the failure. So you're just kind of pre-failing. You're
100%.
like, well, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
It's different if you don't want to. Like if you say,
Right.
I'm never going to jump out of an airplane because I just don't want to.
Right.
But it's different than, oh, I've always wanted to jump out of airplane, but I'm afraid. And I'm not
Hmm.
going to do it. So you're like
Right.
pre-failing rather than just making a decision that that's not for you. Because like
Yes.
everything isn't for everyone, right? And so,
Correct.
you have to, like you said, listen to your heart and what's authentic to you. But
Yeah. And
yeah,
that's a great comment because my brother didn't understand about my time down, like my move to Costa Rica. And it's like, but that's not for you. That's
right.
okay. I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
But I ask you that you support me on my move. I'm like, I said, I'm a sunset girl. I want a Pacific Ocean. So it's either going to be Hawaii, California, or Costa Rica. My brother's in Michigan. My mom's in Florida. I'm a lot closer in Costa Rica than I would be in California or Hawaii.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, you just have to support my decision. You don't have to agree with it.
Right. Right. And even if you don't support it, I'm going to do it anyway.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
hopefully they don't get mad. Right.
Right. But that's going back to the people pleasing. And
Yeah.
that's not you truly living your life. So if
Right.
there's, people on your podcast are listening and maybe you have a practice of 20 years and you're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Don't, your heart is telling you that,
Right.
then it's time. It's okay. Step
Yeah.
away, sell it, like go
Yes.
live your life for you. You've been living your life for everybody else by taking care of their animals. I mean, which is beautiful because I'm such
Right.
an animal person, but
Yeah.
sort of like probably what you did.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really it's a hard decision when you're successful and then you
Yes.
decide to change course, and
Hmm.
then people are like, well, why would you do that? And it's like, well,
Right.
because I've done that already now. I want to do something
Exactly.
else. And not
Yep.
everyone gets that, like
No.
my husband will sometimes say, you're just never satisfied. And I'm like, maybe that's my personality, or maybe I just love setting goals. But
Yeah.
there's something beautiful about trying something and either
Yeah.
failing or succeeding at it. Because when you
Hmm.
fail, then you just know that you either need to change the course or you need to
Yeah.
change that goal a little bit so
Yeah.
you can get there or whatever.
Yeah. For me, like my second Ironman that I did, I went to Ironman Brazil, and the the Ironman Hawaii slot. So I was in the 30 to 34 age group. That slot actually rolled down all the way to the eighth place. I was ninth. I was 82 seconds off of eighth place. But what I love about that story is that I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have done 15 Ironmans because I would have
Right.
been like, oh, I already went to Hawaii. That
I
was
did
easy.
it. Yeah.
I did it. No problem.
Right.
What's next?
Yeah.
But I love the story that I had because it was that story of grit, determination, and that mindset of being like, no, I'm going to make this happen.
Well, right, because it would have been so easy to quit when you were ninth
Right.
and say, oh, well, I guess it's just not meant to be. I'm not
Right.
going to do it. I'm not going to go to Hawaii. And but you didn't. You stayed tough.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. Mhm.
So you told me before, I think before we got on this podcast, that there's three things, and maybe you've kind of already said this, but I just want you to say it again. There's
Yep.
three things that kind of keep you on track
Hmm.
when you're going for a goal, whatever it is, whether it's a
Yeah.
triathlon or a new thing that you're doing. What are those
Right.
three things that people need to learn about?
Yeah, for me, what I teach my women that are going through a major change, whether that's perimenopausal, menopausal, divorce, change of a job, loss of a parent, loss of a child, is fitness, nutrition, and mindset. So
Mm.
fitness could be strength training, going for a walk, finding a new sport. Like I started surfing, not good at it, but I love it.
Yeah,
Uh,
something
you
looks really
know,
fun.
Yesterday we went out, my boyfriend and I went out, and it was like I did 30 minutes. I'm like, I'm done. And I walk out and
It's
and I'm
too
sitting on the
hard.
shore. I'm like, nah, nah. And he comes out like, an hour later and he's like, babe, go back out. I'm like, okay, fine. And I went back out and I popped up, a couple times. It wasn't
Yeah.
pretty, but I did it. Like the
There's
waves
a
were
lot of
just
falling, I
there's a
imagine.
lot of falling, and it was
Yeah.
really powerful ways. Anyways, so the fitness thing for me has been such a huge, like um, the strength training has been a huge role for me as I've aged.
Yes.
And I rarely swim anymore. If I swim, I'm paddling on a surfboard. On my beach cruiser to the market. Like that's my biking.
Not
And
long
I
distances.
not long distance, and I don't run anymore. My body just hurts when I run. And actually I have a coach, a fitness coach, and he put me down for running. I'm like, Derek, I don't run anymore. Like that does not do well
You
for
know how
my
many
body.
miles I've put on these legs?
Seriously. And he's
Enough
like, try to
for
run.
enough for two
Yeah.
lifetimes, right?
Right, right. He's like, try to run under 8-minute miles. I'm like, no, I did that years ago. So, and then when it came to nutrition, I realized when I was going through the separation and the divorce, I knew I could control something, and that was my nutrition. And so I started doing intermittent fasting, which that's a whole other
Subject.
topic. Yes.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me was counting my macros. My macronutrients were my carbohydrates, my fats, and my proteins. And I
Yeah.
felt like that was something that I could control along with my fitness.
Yeah.
And then mindset was really my mindset was expressing gratitude daily
Mm,
and having like going to bed and saying I'm grateful for my past, my present, and my future. And then I would just really break it down. So for example, I would say, thank you, universe, God, whatever your beliefs are. Thank you for my past. Thank you for showing me who I am and who I've become. Thank you for my now. Thank you for a roof over my head. Thank you for talking with Julie and her podcast followers. And then for the future, I would say, thank you for my future. I have no idea what that looks like, but all I know is that I trust you. I
that's
trust
awesome.
you on the path that you're going to take me. I did that. I would meditate and, I wouldn't be there for 2 hours. I would do it for 10, 12 minutes. I would meditate. And then after I meditated, I would journal. And I have books all over my little house with journaling. And those are I guess there's a little bit more than three, but that
But
mindset
it's all
was,
about mindset. Yeah.
it is. Yeah, it
And
is.
training your brain to think differently.
Yep.
Now, I kind of did
Yeah.
that yesterday. I had I had a dentist appointment or something, and which I hate. I hate going to the dentist. I don't know why. It just feels like a waste of time to me. But that's my brain. And I got home and I was kind of like feeling like I wasted my day, and I was thinking about it. And I spent like an hour on the phone with my son, who is just a brilliant human. And we had a really good time talking. And then my daughter called me because she was shoe shopping because she's coming into town for a wedding.
Cute.
And so I
Uh-huh.
got to talk to both of them yesterday, and my brain was telling me I didn't have a good day. And I'm like, no, you had a great day. You got to talk to both your
Hmm.
kids. You
Yeah.
got your teeth cleaned and they were all great. They didn't make you
Right.
go back for any stupid stuff. And it was a sunny day, so I went for a bike ride. I'm like, what is
Perfect.
it that my brain's telling me I'm having a bad day? Like, why is that?
Right.
But I think
Right.
just understanding that that's what's going to happen, and then you have to
Hmm.
reframe it by the gratitudes.
Hmm.
And when I
Yes.
said, oh, I'm super grateful that I got to talk to Tristan for so long, I'm super grateful that I got to talk to Bridget and got to go for a bike ride, even better,
Yeah.
and then I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, this was an awesome day.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
so sometimes focused on what did I get done, or just
Yeah.
checking off the checklist, and that's not what it's all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it's funny you say that because that surf session, I got out after the 30 minutes and I pulled out my phone and I actually made a reel on Instagram. You could go to Coach Jen Rulon and I'm on TikTok too, but I made the reel saying, was my session an epic fail or was it a lesson learned? And so I reversed it and realized, okay, it was a lesson learned. It wasn't a fail. I
Right.
was out there surfing for 30 minutes. I realized that I was like, okay, maybe the waves are a little bit more powerful than what I'm used to. And then when I was talking to my boyfriend who's an amazing surfer, I'm like, why, what was I doing wrong?
Yeah.
I said, you
What
watched
could I
me.
change?
He's like, he goes, the waves were super powerful. He goes, and they were closing out too quick. So like I have to get faster on my pop up, And
Okay.
so
Like, so
it
he
was just
told you something you could change.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's just me learning and getting out there more often. You have to flip that switch like you did yesterday. It's like, no, it wasn't a bad day. Maybe because you didn't do any work or, like you
Right.
didn't
Like
do
I didn't
something
get
for the
enough work
job.
done. Yeah.
Yes. But
Yeah.
you did have it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, tell me, what I haven't asked you so far that I should.
Mm. Oh boy.
Sometimes I'm like,
Mm,
what am I missing to ask? And
mm,
you know what I thought of when you were talking about, while you're thinking about that, um, when you were talking about the nutrition and the
hmm,
macros and the fasting and all that.
hmm.
If you want to come back, we could do another podcast on that because that's super interesting to
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah.
I know a lot about pet nutrition, but when it comes to your own
For
nutrition,
sure.
we know about it,
Yeah.
but to actually apply it to your life is difficult. And so
Yeah.
that would be a fun conversation, I think.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I think something that I share a lot in my podcast are about strength training and
Okay.
and
How important it is.
how important it is when as we turn 30. So even if there's vet technicians or people helping you guys out, pet
Yes.
handlers or whatever, at 30 years old, we start losing our muscle mass. We start declining our muscle mass every 2 to 5% per decade.
Ugh,
And
that's
so
depressing.
it is. So then at 60 years old, it gets worse.
Mhm.
So my goal for the clients that come to me is like, no, my goal is to one, teach you how to strength train, how to get confident in the gym. And the other day, I'm actually taking a menopause course just to learn about reasons why. And then I started
How the
asking
body
my,
changes and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on television, but
right,
I will also reach out to my followers and say, ladies, can you tell me why is it that you're not strength training? Why is it that you're working out? And a lot of women are like, the fear of judgment, the fear of not knowing what to do,
right.
or information overload. And then
Yes,
time's another big thing. And it's like,
right.
no, I'm like, we got to get you guys, we got to get the ladies in that gym strength training. And I
Yes,
remember this quote that I don't know who said it. If it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll make an excuse.
yes. And that's absolutely true. Like when we say we don't have time, that's absolutely not true. Because
Thank you.
look at all the other things we make time for, you
Yeah.
know?
We
So,
could sit in, I mean, I was spending, I think, 40 minutes on trying to figure out how to watch the Lions game in Costa Rica, and I couldn't make it happen. I was so upset, I'm like, I just wasted 40 minutes where my boyfriend and his son were sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I just need to turn it off. Like,
right,
I'll
right.
just watch it on the app. And then
Yeah.
they started winning. I'm like, all right, maybe I shouldn't be watching it.
I love
The
that.
superstitious behavior,
Yeah,
right?
don't
Yeah,
jinx them, right?
right,
So
right.
tell us a little bit about your book. So if
Hmm.
anybody wants to, because that's about motivation, does it have strength training in it too?
No, not specifically. I mean, it
Mostly
talks about
motivation.
fitness. Yeah, it talks about fitness. The ironic thing about writing that book, it came during 2020. So
Hmm.
here, yeah, 2020. So
Yeah,
here I was, that triathlon coach. I was coaching up to 20 athletes. All of a sudden, 2020 happened. I'm like, I have no athletes because nobody's racing.
right.
Nobody's
Nobody's
getting
getting
paid.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody, like nothing's
Wow.
happening. And all of a sudden, this publisher comes to me, and they came to me in 2019, but I turned down the deal.
Mm,
And so then they go, what are you doing? And the ironic thing is I was actually starting a woman's program. And I says, well, I'm starting to help women. And like I started this program with women, and then March 2020 happened. And so I still had these women that I was working with, and it was like that life coaching and all that stuff. And
yeah,
I've
yeah.
definitely changed my ways on from how I coached women from 2020 to now. But I wrote that book, and we were going through therapy. And so I felt me writing the book was also very therapeutic for me
Okay.
because we
Yeah.
were talking, like in the book, it was about fitness. We talked a little bit about nutrition, very basic, but we talked about personal relationships, community, spiritual journey, whether, higher power, whatever your beliefs are.
Right.
What else? Creativity, because as women,
Mhm.
we need that
That's a big
creativity.
thing I've learned. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So that's what the book is about. And it's one of those books, I can't believe I don't have it with me. I need to remember next time I'm on a podcast. It's in the
You need to
kitchen,
be able to hold
but
it up.
I do.
I did that
Self-motivation.
yesterday. I was on a podcast and I'm like, oh, I better have my book handy.
Right, right. But the great thing about the book is that, and sometimes I'll go on TikTok and I'll do a TikTok live and I'll just go, let's talk about this. And that's one of
Yes.
those books. It's not that
Right.
you could actually sit there and read, but it's like, maybe once a week you open up and you're
Yeah.
like, all right, this is what I'm going to
I'm going to
read, or
learn
this is what
about
I'm going to,
this.
yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
great. That's awesome.
yeah,
So, before we get too close to the end and get out of time,
of
tell
course.
everyone where they can find you
Yeah,
if they want to
yeah,
either learn more about you or coach with you. And oh my gosh, I could probably keep you on here for another hour because there's so many things I want to ask you, but maybe
right.
we'll do another one
We'll do
in
part two.
in
I'd like
a couple
that.
months. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to
let's
learn
do
about the
that.
nutrition stuff for sure.
Yeah.
So
You could, yeah,
tell me
you could
where
go
to
to,
find you.
yep, you could go to jenrulon.com. I am actually updating my website. So hopefully by the time this
In
comes out,
progress. Yeah, this will probably
yes,
take a few weeks to come out. So yeah, you might have it
perfect.
done by then. Yeah.
Might have it done by then. So
Yeah.
jenrulon.com, you could go there. You could go to Instagram, Coach Jen Rulon. You could go to TikTok, Coach Jen Rulon. You could actually go to my YouTube channel, Coach Jen Rulon. That's where you'll see some of I also did a podcast, The Everyday Healthy Human, but that
Hmm,
is on
a good
hiatus.
one.
Thanks. But I really feel that my shift is more women. And
Yes.
we've talked about that. So I realized
Right.
that when I started the podcast, I was like, what am I doing?
Not knowing
Like,
what
and
to do. Right.
not
You were
knowing what to do.
still figuring it out.
So yeah, so I currently have and then currently right now I do one-on-one coaching, personalized training coaching. And then I also have group coaching called Empower Her. And it's those are 8-week courses, and that's going to be starting up again probably around my birthday sometime. So yeah, which
Awesome.
is October 27th.
Oh, well, happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Thank
Because I
you.
probably won't
Thank you.
see you then, but maybe I'll see you after.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely
exactly.
think it would be fun to get together and talk a little bit more about nutrition for women and the strength training for sure. It'd be good if
Yeah.
you could give some people some tips on how to get started on that.
Yeah. Well,
Because
I'll be
it
in.
is intimidating,
It
going to
is
the gym and
very
not knowing what you're
intimidating.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that because that's what I'm super passionate about.
Yeah.
And that's where I love. So with my women and my men, I have a limit of working with men and I'm at my max. But with women, I love taking photos. We do photos, measurements, and weigh-ins every Friday. And then it's interesting because when they first start off with me, they do the photos and their faces are just like sad. And
Sad.
then, yeah, and then all of a sudden you see the shift in their bodies, you see the shift on the scale, but also you see the shift in their mind
Mhm.
because then you look at that photo over here and then you look at that photo maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and they're like,
They feel so much
it's
better about themselves.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've worked with a lot of women for like 3 months and then they're like, all right, I know what to do. And so it's like, all right, excellent. My job is done.
Right. Right. Yeah, because you're training them skills. I say that to the people that I coach. It's like, look, this isn't meant to always, I mean, it could be a lifelong relationship, but it's really
Hmm.
meant to teach you how to coach yourself.
For sure.
Like that's what a good coach will do. It's like to get you
Exactly.
motivated. And sometimes you need the accountability of having somebody to check in with all the time.
100%.
But
Hmm.
and that's perfectly wonderful. But to really coach yourself is kind of the key, is to know the
Agreed.
techniques and how do I change this when I start to feel discouraged? How do I change,
Yep.
it into gratitude? And a lot of the things you've said are really applicable to anything,
Right. Agreed.
not just athletics. And I love it.
Agreed.
Well, is there
Wonderful.
anything else that we should say before we close this up?
I was going to say if you're looking to transition into a different path, trust that heart. The
Oh,
heart knows the way.
I love that. So if there's an inkling there, you've got to listen to it.
You have to listen to it.
Yeah, yeah, that's really
Yeah.
true. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
try to figure it out. If you don't know what exactly
Correct.
what it is, then go after it. I think that
Correct.
that's what holds a lot of us back is they know they want something, they just don't know exactly what. And
Hmm.
rather than try to find it, they just sort of like stop and,
Hmm.
and
And
get someone to
and
help you figure it out.
yeah, and I was going to say in the triathlon space, when I still work with triathletes, but when they're getting ready for a race, I look at that race when that race is, and then I go backwards.
Mm,
That's the same thing about our life. If you're looking to leave a position, if you're looking to change jobs, and you say, okay, by March 1st, I want to be out of here. I want to like move to
right.
a different country. Like
Yeah.
you work, I mean, that's a quick turnaround, but
Right.
you work your way backwards.
Yeah, there's a lot
So,
of steps, right? Like what do I need
yeah,
to do and then what order do they need to go in and you're not going to know all the steps right at the beginning. You might
no,
have to figure something out, but
correct.
it's always
Correct.
doable. Yeah. Well, I love this.
Yeah.
It's been really fun. It's
It's
been great.
been great. Thank you,
We had
Julie.
a really good time and
Yes,
I hope we can do another one.
that would be great.
It'd be
I mean,
really fun.
I will be around in person in at the end of October for my birthday. So
Oh,
maybe
really? In Michigan?
I'll be in Troy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have
Yeah.
to see if I'm in town then. I might be
I was
leaving
gonna say you
town.
might be leaving.
We might
Rightfully
pass.
so.
But it's really
Right.
cool that you're from the same area that I'm from. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Well,
Well,
enjoy
thank you so
Costa
much.
Rica.
I will.
I'll have to come
I
down
will.
there and visit.
Please do.
That's what I should do.
We'll take you surfing.
And I can learn how to surf.
Yep. Yep. I
That
love
would
it.
be fun. Yeah, I would love that. All right, everyone.
All
This is
right.
Jen Rulon, and so look her up and check her out and see all the amazing things that she's done. And I really appreciate you being here today and meeting
Thank
you.
you.
It was really a good time.
It was a great time. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye.
Ciao.